We are talking about Avatar 2, Glass Onion, and Young Rock. And we're going to discuss NDI video. And now your hosts, Mike and Diglio!
What is up, team? Welcome to K&M Geekly. Just a sneak peek at two geeks talking about some of the things that have gotten them through their week. I'm Mike and Diglio. I am joined, as always, by my great internet buddy and life buddy, Keith Varney. Keith,
life buddy.
let me ask you the question you've been asking me. What is up? How's the week been so far?
Oh boy, it's been okay. Been busy doing some stuff. I'm getting 1,000 texts right this very minute from my lawyer, who is but not about anything legal or important, but about fantasy football. Who,
as it should be,
is having a lot of strong feelings at inappropriate times about how we're handling the game from Monday, which was very upsetting for everybody. We're recording this on. Speaking, you know what? I was trying to wonder why am I in a bad mood today, and then I just realized as we're talking, it's January 6th.
It is.
It is the 2-year anniversary of the insurrection, and I think we had this exact same conversation a year ago. I was like, why? Like, you're like, why are you so grumpy? And I had no idea, and it was January 6th. I think like just the anniversary of that makes me grumpy.
And on this anniversary of that, Keith, the House of Representatives still in disarray.
Yes, I believe you posited that I should be the Speaker of the House, and I said, well, I have exactly the same chance as Kevin McCarthy. So we'll see if that's true in 24 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting piece of a snapshot of time, because Keith and I are very liberal politically, but it's just an interesting event taking place because it's been over a century since there has been no unanimous vote or consistent non-unanimous votes for a Speaker of the House. And what I find really interesting about the chaos taking place is that those who are opposed to Kevin McCarthy, the sort of never Kevin portion of the Republican Party, doesn't really have any sort of they don't have any agenda. No, it's more of just a chaos kind of grenade, right?
Well, because it's a whole bunch of jokers from Batman, from The Dark Knight. It's just like Heath Ledger jokers. That's pretty much all they just want to watch the world burn, which they did 2 years ago, and they were all supporting it. So
yeah, well, there you go.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's really quite a fascinating display of misery and incompetence. But here we are. This is what happens. Mike, do you know what happens when you capitulate to crazy and then expect them to act sane?
You join our Patreon?
Yes, exactly. You join our Patreon at patreon.com/K&M. Spell out that and all of these people are capitulating to crazy, and guess what? We're still acting crazy. Mike, who's doing it?
Yes, we have our co-conspirators, Brian Kaufman, Casey Clark, Cloud Lover 69, Jason Moe, Andrew Hayes, Jorge Navoa. Show me those toonies. Oh, no, that's Andrew. Sorry. You know what? Show them to me anyway. And the mysterious hand. Warps, Boot, Shivs, CRM Productions, Charles Babbage, Grim Toys, Delusions at Noon, Eric Wilson. Guys, as you can see, space isn't just the background. There's lots of space on that tile, which means we can welcome new members to the team. We
sure
hope to see you. Keith, what do they get? In fact, new stuff.
Oh, so much fun stuff. You get bonus episodes. You get us reviewing other episodes of the animated Star Trek, the animated series. We've got a next gen episode up there. We've got more to come there. We've got AMAs. We have extra special unboxings, and we started just this week with putting up play-alongs. So Mike and I are currently playing through Star Trek: The Next Generation, a new whatever it is.
A final Unity.
A final Unity.
But it's basically just us walking back and forth.
Walking back and forth. It's like, what do you do? I can't. What is the button you press? Damn it! I don't know what to do.
Click on everything.
And making dick jokes. So if that's
jokes. Yep.
If you're like, wow, I want that. You can check out the first episode in our regular feed here, and there'll be more up on the Patreon at patreon.com/K&M. Mike, what are we talking about today?
Well, Keith, lots of stuff. So last week, those of you who watched K&M Geekly, which there are people, and they let us know, and they were touched, Keith, that we showed some vulnerability. We talked about our feelings, our emotions, our hopes and dreams and desires for the new year. But this year, no. We're not going to do that. We're talking about geek stuff. We're going to talk a little bit about a new technology that we've been flirting with for the past 6 months or so, and we've sort of moved over to entirely now. So we're going to talk about that. That's NDI, who actually is having a bit of a showcase today at CES, which is the Consumer Electronics Showcase happening out in, I believe, Las Vegas. They're talking today. We're going to talk a little bit about it just to you who care. And then, Keith, I want to talk about some stuff we've been watching. My 2 most anticipated movies of the whole 2022, I shoehorned in just this past week. A little late.
Wow.
So I want to talk about them. My expectations were high for both. And we'll see if Mike was pleased or less than pleased.
Yeah.
And Keith, you've been watching a new show that I'm actually really excited to check out. I haven't checked out, so I'm interested to hear about it. So let's jump in first and foremost with, where did I put it?
Oh, I don't know. This is very exciting. The suspense is killing me.
Nope.
Which one is it going to be, Mike?
Oh, boy.
What's gonna happen?
Boy, I don't know where I put it.
I love how we're now, using an NDI professional broadcasting system, and we still can't transition.
No, we can't. We'll do it live. Social medias, go away. Okay, so Keith, let's talk at the beginning of time, at the beginning of K&M time. This is back. We started with a podcast called Out of Practice Podcast. It was about David E. Kelly's The Practice, and we did it as a audio podcast. So how we facilitated that generally, actually, do you remember? Do you remember how we initially facilitated it?
Well, we recorded locally, and I think it was either Skype or Zoom.
It was definitely
with
Skype,
each other.
I believe, yeah.
It was Skype, so we could see each other, but we weren't doing any sort of a video component whatsoever.
At that point, no. But we were recording our audio locally, and then we'd throw that into a DAW and edit it down and try to sync up the timing based on what sounded appropriate. Really?
What seemed so, and if you go back and listen to some of our earlier episodes, it's well, see, Mike. Well, it
wasn't great.
It wasn't always great.
And then we started utilizing the snap system. So we would each snap asynchronously on a countdown. And then I would try to use that to sync it up, which was nuts. And then at some point we moved over to, I think we stayed with Skype for quite a long time. Because what Skype started to do, then we started pulling into a video editor, because what Skype would do is Skype started sending out a very, what's the word? It started flirting with, words escape me, with a technology called NDI, which I had no idea what it meant. But what it did is it said it was low latency. That's all I cared about. So I started recording the audio and video via Skype, and something I downloaded on my Mac, because the audio and video was synced really well, and it didn't seem that there was a huge delay. So then I was using that in my DAW to line up our snaps, and which would then line up the audio. So as we went along, we started doing YouTube stuff. Keith and I realized that in order to keep things synced, we were going to have to figure out a way to remove the latency, because on Zoom and on Skype there is a pretty significant lag. So there's a company called NewTek. NewTek in 2015 started this new. It's basically a codec. It's a way where they encode audio and multi-channel video into one stream, super low latency, and send it through the internet. Which is it removes and it allows you to do so via your whole network. So instead of just sending one video feed, you can have a whole network of these NDI feeds on your side. Keith can have them on his side, and we can actually meet in the middle. Now, we were doing that through a free, and the cool thing about NewTek is that it's all, oh my God, that's creepy. I didn't see it until you pointed it out. The cool thing about this is it's all open source. So we use OBS Broadcast, which is
also open source.
Open source. And we use a program that this guy, I wish I knew his name, I should have looked it up, wrote on the internet, which is open source. It's called OBS VDO.Ninja, which is totally free, totally open source. And what it does is it converts these NDI sources into a web source. Like you can look at HTML or HTTPS, and put it into your OBS as a browser capture, and great. The problem Keith and I have been running into, as you might have seen over the past 6 months to a year forever, is Keith's usually low bit Keith, because what this site does is it basically says, here's what Keith's sending us. If traffic on the site or if traffic on Keith's side or Mike's side is busy for whatever reason, we will compress Keith to make it flow quickly. Now what we've discovered is through NewTek, there's something called the NDI bridge, which is basically allowing Keith and I to connect peer-to-peer, and Keith, I'm getting basically sent directly Keith's feed in real time, which should allow, Keith, should it continue to work, us to not have to, because then what we were doing is having Keith send me a completely separate video feed.
Right, I was recording my video locally.
I would key him out in DaVinci Resolve, pull him in, edit it, mix it down, but that took an extra 3 hours, and then that render took forever because you're rendering down Keith's high quality. A whole bunch of stuff is taking place. So our 1 hour Geekly is a 5 hour project, times 3 shows a week, times the setup and the prep and stuff, and it becomes seriously a full-time job, which is fine. That's what we signed up. We signed up for it, right?
Nobody asked us to do this.
But what NDI is allowing us to do, at least in our Let's Play, and this is our first episode doing it fully remote, is the second we're done here, Keith, I will drag the file into DaVinci. The audio will come with it. I will normalize the audio, slap on, my pre-done mastering suite, and just hit export. That's the dream, because it allows us to
find out. Yeah,
it allows us to focus on just doing the content, right, and not worrying about the other crap.
And navigating the cat.
Yeah. So Keith, in your couple of days with NDI, what have you learned? What have you? I'll give you the wiki, the first wiki of it. Right, here's the first sentence on the wiki page.
Yeah.
Royalty-free software developed by NewTek to enable video-compatible products to communicate, deliver, and receive high-definition video over a computer network in high-quality, low-latency manner that is frame-accurate and suitable for switching in live production environments.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's remarkable tech, and there is it's not a learning curve, but you do have to install a bunch of different things with other things to get other things to work. But once it's rolling, it's really quick. I mean, once we had to build out the connection. We had to make it talk to OBS, had to make OBS talk to my camera, and then run the various NDI programs. And they've got a whole mess of different programs.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's a remarkable suite of stuff. I can't believe that it's free. I can't believe it's open source. It's
now.
really, really cool. For now. But I'm it allows me to send Mike a much better signal. I can sort of calibrate stuff, and I'm not recording anything locally right now, which is great. And I also, if you go back to our pre-holiday episode, I talked about my $60 webcam, which so I've been trying to improve the quality of my video. And so, when I was rocking a real camera that was going in through HDMI, but it just wasn't looking that great. And it maxed out at 50 frames. Then I had an old iPhone, so I did that. And and again, it was struggling with getting all the frame rates in at 60 frames through the USB, through the lightning cable, blah 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 blah. Anyway, so I went back to my Nexico 660, which is a webcam, and I was like, let me see if I can really dial this in. And now this is what you're watching me now on a $60 webcam.
Yeah, but here's the fun thing. So, granted, Keith and I just like to futz with stuff. It's a hobby.
Endlessly.
Yeah.
Endlessly.
And so all of this is overkill, but we are just stretching the limits. So a lot of NDI stuff, where they make their money is they make production quality for live production studios
Yeah.
churches, video
Like
production, things like
Or
that.
CNN's probably using it. Like,
And they make actual cameras and servers and things that have NDI built in, right? So it's none
Right.
of this futzing with this open source tech. It's all built into the to the hardware, which is I think where they make them, because those things are very expensive. I looked into it. But right now, what you're seeing is a 4K, 60 frames per second video that we both filmed asynchronously, or live, but remotely using
Right.
webcams. So Keith's
Webcam.
using his webcam. I'm faking a DSLR depths of field using NVIDIA's broadcast software, just for S's and giggles. But it's
Oh, interesting.
ostensibly what you would get from like an $800 Sony SLR, right?
Yeah.
DSLR. It's nuts. It's nuts what you can do now.
And here's the thing: if you're working with a camera like this, if you're working with a webcam like this, it's a great webcam. Like, and it was always great, 60 frames a second, autofocus, love it. But I never thought it looked good enough. And it's because I didn't have the settings really dialed in. It has a sharpening feature that was over sharpening to the point where it looked pixel bus. And all it really took was fine tuning all of this, the aperture and the and the gain and getting that right. And now it's got its own software. So I've built in presets. So now I have two of them. I have to figure out how to get them to work at the same time. However, I can just load the preset and it's locked in exactly how I like it, just ready to go. So I'm very, very impressed. I can't believe that the $1,100 iPhone and the $300 actual camera were outdone by a $60 webcam. So
ease of use. We're in the world of ease of use. So anyway, if you do a podcast with a remote host, or you want to start having hosts or whatnot, these are all free things. Go to ndi.tv. They have you can download your suite. It's Windows and Mac, right? And it's vdo.ninja. That's the sort of, the sort of Zoom-like software
free
that we
Zoom-ish
use.
thing. Yeah.
You got to learn you got to tinker with it. So I can't.
Yeah.
But give it a shot.
And if you're not broadcasting a web show or doing any sort of video stuff on the internet, that was the most boring conversation we have ever had in the history of our show. So there you go.
Well, that's saying something. So now, Keith, let's talk about film and television. I will go first. And I will, let me remember. I'm just stalling. I want to
uses mouth noises.
And I want to launch this. So, Keith, picture it. When was Avatar 1? Let's remember.
It was a long time ago.
Avatar Wiki.
Like 2009, wasn't it?
Let's see if Keith is right. Yeah, July 2009. Wow, buddy.
Woo!
Not bad. So we were young bucks at the time.
We were. We're in our 20s.
Yeah, 29 years old.
Jeez.
So I remember seeing Avatar first at the Lincoln Square Cinemas on 73rd Street, something like that.
Oh, the Lincoln Center was? I think it's like
60s, 60 something, yeah, like that. Anyway, It was the big IMAX screen. And then I remember seeing it at the Franklin Institute IMAX screen. I was seeking out IMAX screens because what I remember most about Avatar 1 and why I saw it a bunch of times, I think upwards of 6-7 times in the theaters.
In the theater? Good Lord.
And only once ever outside of the theater. I'll talk about that in just a second. Was because, Keith, as clearly as geeks and as AV nerds, this was an inflection point in my life because it was unlike anything I had ever seen visually or technically. What they accomplished via the CGI and also the 3D technology was absurd to me. Before that, 3D was those red and blue glasses you got in like a popcorn box to watch something on the TV, and it was a gimmick at best. This was the first use of a director, James Cameron, who is an auteur, a genius, a hard ass, who really made it work and pop for me. In fact, I ended up a couple years later buying a 3D TV.
I remember that.
because I was like, oh, this is the next thing. Avatar made me think 3D was going to be the next thing.
Everybody thought that, yeah.
In my opinion, no other film, even all the Marvel, the billions of dollars spent, no one really ever did 3D. Really, nothing subsequent to that changed the game again. They never really upped it. A lot of it was done in post, so it wasn't filmed.
Yeah, there's a lot of like lazy.
Yes. And Cameron shot that film with 3D and IMAX in the forefront of his vision. And it just blew me away. Now, in subsequent years, I attempted to watch Avatar a few times, not in 3D and not on the big IMAX screen. And it turned out to be just a pretty boring film, to be frank. I don't find the lore, Pandora, to be. I think they're very interesting. I think it's an amazing vision for him, but I never really the story. It didn't really do anything for me. It really was the visual geekdom for me. It was like my dad showing off his Laserdisc system and just showing just the IMAX experience. So Keith, here we are. Let's see, that's 2009. So what are we? 10 years to 2019.
13, 14
13,
years.
15 years later-ish. It's time for Avatar 2. It's 3.5 hours. Not only is I wanted to see where did they push the sound design, the visual design, because this movie is entirely in CG. They spend the whole time in Pandora, and there is one human character in the movie. Right? So this whole thing is CG. They've been rendering the video for about 15 years.
Yeah, literally.
But not only that, Keith, it's the first film I've ever seen shot in variable refresh rate. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
This is important because James Cameron is big on developing new tools. Obviously, he's a water guy. We all know he's like the new Jacques Cousteau. This is shot with a lot of water effects, underwater effects, using what he's learned in these years. But variable refresh rate as a tool, and here's what it means for lay people out there. Generally, what you watch in the movies is 24 frames per second, which you can figure out. That means 24 little shots every second. On television, it's 30 frames per second, but ostensibly it's the same thing. Okay.
For us, it's 60.
So 60 frames per second is real fluid. You might, I like it for sports and stuff, but you might, the easiest way to make your brain gronk this is when you turn on the soap opera effect on your TV, on your brand new LCD TV, that sort of like smooth video motion things that some people really like. I absolutely loathe it, right? I'm not a fan of soap opera effect on the televisions and the real smooth thing.
It's soft focus for frame rate.
Yeah, it's disconcerting to me. However, it has its place. Sports, action scenes, because
other way around. Yeah.
What do you mean?
Oh, I was saying soft focus. No, higher frame rate means it's more realistic. It's more lifelike.
Which sometimes takes you out of the immersion of a watching experience, but it's really, it may work for you, may not. But generally in sports and in action sequences, higher frame rate immerses you more. It's easier to follow what's going on. It's not as juddery, so it has its uses. This film is shot in variable refresh rate, which means he switches back and forth. You're going to see it in glorious 60 frames per second during action sequences, and then in some other sequences, it's shot in 24 frames per second, which is very cinematic. How would that work? These are all the questions Mike had going in. It's also 3.5 hours long, Keith. Did I mention that?
Yeah. That's my number one reason for not seeing it in the theaters is that.
It also cost all the billions. And there are some great stories you can read, interviews. I won't belabor the point here about James Cameron being like them trying to withhold money from him or asking him questions, and him basically saying, "Hey, I'm not answering any of your questions. I'm not giving you any creative control.
Yeah,
give me all the billions.
I made Avatar.
Suck it." And Titanic and this. And guess what? They did. And it's making the monies. And they've already greenlit the sequels he's already working on. So good for you, James Cameron. I just think his badassery really works for me. Why is Thor playing right now?
I don't know. It's showing up there for a second.
Interesting. I have no idea okay, Avatar's back.
Yeah, it's looping.
Okay, that was weird.
It's also why we can't monetize this video.
Oh, no. Well, whatever.
But I say that I say that sheepishly, realizing I would love, if you're watching this and you've been like following our saga, make a guess what we have grossed since we monetized.
Is it
Just put it down
even
below.
better? Over or under $10?
Over.
That's the question.
No. Here's the make your guess without going over. Closest one to it, we say hello to them on the next episode.
Oh wow! Oh my god!
I know.
Guess the jelly beans. All right.
Look, I was trying to come up with a prize. I'm like, we don't have any prizes.
CEO Jen came back from her show, and we went and saw Avatar. All right. First things first.
I don't like that sigh.
Because I wanted to love it. I wanted to at least rekindle some of the feeling I had from the first one. Here's the thing. First of all, it's just too damn long. It's too long. It could have used a hefty edit. I guess if you're spending all the billions, you're like, I don't want to make a cut. But it just was too long. 1. 2, the story is... I didn't find it to be as heartfelt as I had heard. It's about family and protecting your family. I get it. I found a lot of the decisions made by the main characters to be a little trite. I thought the performance of the child actor is really great. I found the big bad to be... They gave him a complex sort of backstory, but it's really not that complex. It's not... All of it feels skin deep, right? Which, when you're in for a 3.5-hour adventure film, you want the stakes to be a little higher. Okay. Not a great movie. But Keith, to be honest, that's not really what I cared about anyway, right? Let's be honest. The bips and bops.
You're there for the tech. You're there for the variable frame rate.
I am here to say that in the past 15 years, our home entertainment tech has progressed to the point where it has almost made the IMAX movie theater experience moot.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I love rumbling sound. I love 11-channel surround. I love all that stuff. But the visuals, the 3D, nothing has been added to 3D. 3D, it no longer, the immersion no longer trumps the experience of having the crystal clear OLED experience in your living room if you've got something, or a really good. It just didn't. It had none of that magic. And that really is what surprised me the most, is that the magic of experiencing true IMAX shot 3D CGI that I experienced when I was 29 has completely been trumped. It just was not there at all. And I wanted it to be, so I don't know if that's just a product of how far we've come in the home, and I think it is. And just that 3D, even shot with 3D in mind, I think it's also video games have progressed to a point where you get that kind of cinematic immersion in other realms. It's just...
Well, if you think about
paying $50 for 2 movie tickets...
Good Lord.
It just did not... I'd rather go see something live. Just go see live theater at that point. It's 100%. Interesting to me that that's what made the first experience for me, and that this was not that. And worse yet, Keith, I'm not on the variable refresh rate train. In video games, I understand it because the tech is catching up, right? We don't really have the boxes that can pump out 60 frames at 4K constantly. Here, it is absolutely jarring. Absolutely jarring. Now, had he chosen to film all of the action sequences in full 60 frames and then in the dialogue scenes cut to 24 frames per second, I could understand that. But here, the decision made that I think took me out of the experience is that he'll cut sequence to sequence. So you'll be in the middle of an action sequence, right? They're flying through something or whatnot, and it'll be at 60 frames and smooth and buttery, but then they'll cut to a close-up and it'll be in 24 frames per second for a couple seconds, and then it'll cut back to 60. He's using it instead of... He's making the decisions on as to when to use the different refresh rates, not technically based, right? He's using it in his mind artistically, storytelling wise. He's like, I want this to look cinematic. I want this to look smooth.
From shot to shot, not scene to scene.
Yes, and I think it would have worked better. Like if I could go watch it again in just 24 frames per second, I think I would do it.
Interesting. So, and I don't know, it might be hard to tell when he does transition. Does he just cut to 60, or does he sort of ramp up
No,
and
it
ramp
feels like a
down?
cut. At least to me, it felt very jarring. Now,
Mm,
did it pull me out of the experience? No. I felt that the action sequences specifically are absolutely amazing. When they're shot in full 4K or full 60 frames, they're beautiful. And as you can imagine, the underwater stuff, there are some sequences with whales that is just like you've never seen anything like it in your life, right?
yeah.
You've never seen anything like it in your life. And that's cool. But those moments compared to the majority of it, which is a little bit boring and just not technically as mind blowing as they had been, and the very refresh rate, all that coalesced to me and Jen looking at, and my wife too, looking at each other a couple of times and being, I wish we had stayed home. I
Well,
wish we had watched something else. And that's
boy,
disappointing.
no. Well, it's tough because I remember for the Hobbit movies, Peter
Yeah.
Jackson
60 frame.
shot them all at 60.
Mhm.
So the whole thing was at 60, and I didn't actually see it in the theater, so I did not see it at 60. But I get, what I read is it took people out of it because
Mhm.
the Vaseline on the lens of 24, buys you a lot, hiding some of the special effects, hiding some of the seams and the sets, sort of the difference between like the next gen remasters. Some of those sets and the effects they redid, but the sets are like, oh, that's clearly a painting. That's
Mhm.
not a hallway, that's a painting.
Now you don't have that issue as much because
The whole
none of
thing.
the
There
stuff
are
here
no
is
seams.
practicals, right? It's
Right.
all CGI, and so it is crisp and beautiful. It's literally just jarring. It's like watch a movie on your television and switch between soap opera effect. Turn on your what do they call it, motion smoothing or whatever.
Right.
Turn it on and off randomly. I even asked my wife, who's not like up on this stuff, could you tell the difference? And she's like, yeah, it felt like soap opera effect at some points. And I was like, yeah. It just
Mm.
and listen, maybe he's just not that. He's not someone. Maybe a different auteur would have a more tasteful approach to the variable switching. It just took me out of it. So, and the story itself. Will I watch this movie again? Probably not. That's at the end of the day.
Wow.
It just didn't feel like a great movie to me. Some of the action sequences, blah 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 blah, and maybe if it was a 2-hour cut, maybe, but it was three
Well,
and a half hours.
yeah, I think two things. And I'm a James Cameron fan.
Me too. Yes,
I
me
mean,
too.
Aliens is in my top 2 movies of all time. I don't know if it's number 1 or number 2 or whatever, but it is an absolute cinematic masterpiece. However, his storytelling and his characters are pretty, stock. Right. They're very straightforward, stock. He is not a tremendous writer of human beings. He's an
Mhm. Mhm.
amazing constructing action, constructing worlds, and I think basic like plotting and storytelling. I think his plotting is excellent. His setting up set pieces is excellent. He's probably the greatest action director ever, I think.
Yeah.
And but yeah, his characters don't really matter. Don't seem like they matter very much to him. Um, but he's a genius beyond all genius in terms of his visual storytelling. Um, but so I think that's part one. Part two, I'm thinking back to 2009 and the difference between the IMAX and what you had at home. Right. And if you go back and watch the 2009 Avatar, the CG of that does not hold up. It was astoundingly groundbreaking for its time. It doesn't look good at all right now. However, I think what was I rocking in 2009
Mm.
for my setup, right? And I spent, it cost more than the TV I have now, but I was rocking a 37-inch 720p high def television, which at that point was like better than all my friends. That I was a cool guy with the giant 37-inch 720p Westinghouse
Mhm.
television that I paid $1,200 for, right? And so without a sound bar, that was like, this is what you get, and it was amazing. It was mind blowing, but the leap to that in the theater was still a huge leap. But now, right here with my $900 television and my $200 sound bar, I think I can, if you sit close enough and you get it all tuned in, like you get 85% of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
With the ability to pause it and pee.
Yeah, well, and make your own
my
snacks.
Popcorn, yeah, like my popcorn costs what is it, like $9 for a 42 pack of Kirkland popcorn? It's delicious.
To me, the IMAX experience, the things like so it was luckily a pretty sparsely attended film, but right in front of us, because you got to get those center seats if you're going to do IMAX and 3D. We had 2 kids come in, like an infant and like a 5-year-old, and me and Jen were like, oh no. But here's the thing with IMAX above all else.
It's so loud.
It's so loud. I don't know if those kids were disruptive or not. I don't know, because I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't hear myself think. It was so loud. But here's the thing. Okay, so generally speaking, Avatar 2 was a swing and a miss for Mike, which is, I can't believe I just said. I don't know how it's reviewed. I haven't really actually. I'd stayed away from that because I didn't want to know. I wanted to go in.
I've read some of them, and they're wildly divergent.
Interesting.
Some of them are like, this is fantastic, and some of them are like, this is garbage, and there's nothing in between.
So I'm going to go ahead and go to my next thing, Keith, and then we'll let you close it out if that's all right.
Sure.
Because they piggyback off one another. Excuse me for just a moment. Let me do this. So the first Knives Out film by Rian Johnson was a sleeper hit for me. I just thought it was truly what we don't get in the movies very often, or these days, is just a truly original idea, script, a throwback to a whodunit with some comedy mixed in, and what you just said. It was fun.
Yeah.
Off the wall cameos.
Crazy all-star cast.
Crazy all-star cast. Oh my God, why am I blanking on his name? James Bond.
James Bond?
Yeah, the main guy here in the movie.
Oh. Yeah, Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig. Oh my God. Anyway, so when the sequels were greenlit and then purchased by Amazon for, I think, $500 million, I think they got a 2-movie deal for like $496 million, something like that.
Woo.
I was pretty excited. And then to hear it's only going to have a 1-week theatrical release and then release on Netflix, I'm thinking, oof, what does that mean? Let me tell you what it means, Keith. It means that I could sit in my living room with my 65-inch OLED television and my 7.1 surround Dolby Atmos speakers.
Yeah, I still got to get me one of those.
With my snacks and my wife, and turn the lights off.
And your cats, all 3 cats.
And basically, like you said, 85%, the experience I just paid $50 for in IMAX. This movie was incredible. The experience was incredible. They took all the things I loved from the first one, the whimsy, the off-the-wall performances by a star-studded cast, just an absolute batshit character in Blanc. And they took all of the kind of twists and turns from the first one and spun them all on their head. I'll just say a couple of things. One, Janelle Monáe plays a big part in this movie. She is incredible. I haven't seen her in much other stuff. I know she's done some other acting, but this is really a star turn for her as an actress. Daniel Craig, incredible. Edward Norton, one of my favorites. Rian Johnson, Keith, there is a deconstruction of, I don't want to give too much, of Chekhov's gun here.
Oh, interesting.
That is chef's kiss. Maybe if you watch it, we'll talk about it. It is just chef's kiss. They do the thing. See, at the last movie did, if you recall, and I'll speak vaguely in case you want to watch them both, dear viewer. They go through the whole mystery, planting breadcrumbs here and there, and then when the mystery is solved at the end, they do the thing where they flash back and they show all of the clues you might have missed to piece it all together. Here, they do that same thing, but they start it at the midway point of the movie. So they play half the movie, right? And you are fresh. You are just seeing things as they are presented. Halfway through, they kind of restart the movie and bring you up to speed onto things you didn't know were happening, and then you progress the last third knowing things you didn't know in the beginning. So it flips the script on its head. I really can't say much more other than this movie is all of the things. It's really intelligent. I think the central mysteries, plural, are really clever. I think the solve is very clever. I think who does the solves are very clever. I think the commentary on the genre, on the form, are very clever. The performances to a person are amazing. It is fun. It is whimsical. It looks beautiful. It is shot in film. It looks like it's shot on film. The editing is it's a little bit long, but it's cut together very well. And the sound design is amazing. Keith, I'm telling you, go back to a couple Geeklys about getting a surround sound system, even if it's a soundbar surround sound system. It really adds so much to the experience. Folks, I'm here to tell you, I love going to the movies.
Strong feelings.
I love IMAX. It's going to be hard to convince Mike to leave his house to watch movies anymore. And I don't know that that's a good thing. But I'm telling you, man, that this experience made me go, oh yeah, this is. And because Jen got home late the first night we started it, we did it in 2 viewings. We were able to pause it, go to bed, and watch it again the next night. You can't do that at the movies.
No, I mean, clearly, as you can tell by the number of hours that we output on this channel every week, neither one of us leave the house much. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm with you.
All right,
I'm definitely not someone who goes to the movie. I haven't gone to the movies since pre-pandemic. For sure, I've gone to the theater. I have not gone to the movies. And I barely went back then. All right, so let me talk about something else you don't have to leave your home to go see. And that is The Young Rock. This is a sort of bio series about Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, movie star, wrestler extraordinaire, on NBC and Peacock, which is where I watch it. Where he is basically retelling the story of his life using the framing device that it is from 2035, and he's running for president, which is an interesting sort of a framing device. I know he's sort of like joked about doing that in real life, but this is his sort of like way to do it. And the show, it's a comedy. And it's set in 3 different time periods, or 4 different
Young
time
Sheldon,
periods.
Is it the same framing? Is it the same people, or is that just a coincidence?
I don't. No, Young Sheldon CBS, isn't it? I don't know. I don't watch Young Sheldon.
Okay.
But yeah. So it's basically we meet 10-year-old him, 15-year-old him, and 20-year-old him, and current him. So it's 4 different timelines happening, and he's sort of telling stories from his past. And the only reason I would ever watch it is because Mike has made me obsessed with all things wrestling, and I just couldn't help myself. And what I was drawn in by was them casting all of the old wrestlers as characters. And so his childhood, he was around. He spent all this time with Andre the Giant and the Iron Sheik, and and the Wild Samoans, and his family was all a part of it. And so we're sort of tangentially and then increasingly part of the wrestling world, also talking about his football career, because he played for the U, Miami, with with Warren Sapp and Jesse Armstead and like all these incredible people. So sort of it's there's a little bit of like a Forrest Gump feel to it, because he's interacting with all of these wildly famous people, and going through this life. And it's interesting because
does he narrate it?
He's in it. So he's narrating and telling all these stories, and he and Randall Park, for the most part, are in the framing device, sort of So he's very much a part of it.
Does he play his dad? Did I see that on the?
He does not play his
Oh, okay.
dad. His dad is played by Joseph Lee Anderson as Rocky Johnson, who's very, very good. The cast is great. Everybody's really, really funny. Yeah, and it's funny. I'm enjoying it. I'm watching it. I'm finding little nuggets that I enjoy. I'm not sure it's good, but it feels sort of like Dwayne Johnson. It is a great encapsulation of his persona, right? Where it is, it's funny, it's smart, it's unique and interesting and very colorful, also a little careful. It's a little bit it's a little sanitized, it's a little preachy, but every time I'm like, this is a little, like this is like he's actually running for president. Like this is really careful and whatever. But every time I get right up to the edge, I'm like, oh, this is getting a little bit, hagiography. He's just, this is just a masturbation to it. And then there's like that little tweak, that little thing, that little sprinkle of salt, which pulls me back in, that gives it a little bit more, it's a family show. So it's not ever going to have the edges. It is definitely not Attitude Era.
But that doesn't mean it can't have, like, Modern Family was a family drama, network television that kind of did it.
And like every episode is like a little like morsel of wisdom from his experience, and and assuming that most of it is true, like he had some rough goes of it. He also had some cool advantages. He had some, honestly, I think it's really well constructed.
Are you going to keep watching it? Is the question.
I am going to keep watching.
Okay.
I'm like mid season 2 now.
Right.
They've done 3 seasons, and I think I'm just looking forward to all of the cameos and like how good is their so and so.
Right.
The Macho Man's not great, but the Iron Sheik is great. And it's just like all of these various people that you meet. It also, I think the other part that is like about it is very much very clearly Vince McMahon approved. Because I think it would have to be, otherwise they wouldn't be able to show all of these gimmicks and all these characters without the WWE.
Well, Vince is out now, so it could be.
Well, no, Hunter. It's Hunter now, but when they filmed the first 2 seasons, it was definitely Vince.
Did you read that rumor that Vince is maybe coming back to sell the company?
Of course he's coming back. Come on.
He's got to get those billions, baby.
Oh, he's got them. But like the portrayal of Vince is like nothing bad is ever said about Vince, and he's a character, right? And he's like, oh yeah, he gave me this great deal. And so like I'm like, so it's like it's very,
yeah.
And so like I'm enjoying it. I'm watching it. It's likable. It's entertaining, but I'm very much like, it's it's like watching a documentary produced by the WWE.
Right.
Like it's well done. It's enjoyable. It's fun. It's half true, and the half true is fun, but I also know that there's a lot more going on there that I'm not seeing because this has been vetted by the WWE. So
yeah, I get it.
But that's it. The performances, the kid actors, they're all the casting department deserves a giant hats off, because each version of him is very believably him. Right, and at various stages of his life, like the way they've cast him, because you've got Bradley Constant, you've got Uli Latekafu as him as in his college years, and Adrian Grew in his age 10. They're all completely believable as him, but they're good actors.
Yeah,
and they're funny, and they're not just lookalikes, and so hats off.
All right, sounds like a solid thumbs up there from you, buddy.
Yeah, and is your brother watching? Because he worked with all these guys.
I don't know. I'll have to ask him.
Because
Especially
Afa and Sika are big parts of the show.
yeah, and he's still close personal friends with them. Did I ever tell you when my dad died? Did I tell you this?
I don't know.
We're an Italian family, and a lot of our friends and family showed up to my dad's funeral, but also because the Samoans are very big on family and respect. Afa and Sam and a bunch of the Samoans all came to my dad's funeral. So it was a bunch of us short Italians and these gigantic Samoan wrestlers
No
were at my
kidding.
dad's funeral. Yeah, it was a funny sight.
Well, and that's a big part of the show.
Mhm.
The incredibly close family. Yeah, Anna Tusila
Mhm.
as his mother, as his grandmother, Leah Mavia, who ran her wrestling company in Hawaii, which you can get from Tales from the Territory, also a Dwayne Johnson thing. Great stories about her. She's probably the best character in it.
Well, I don't even think there's close competition. That family, the Anoi family, is deeper roots in the business than anybody else. I mean,
Oh yeah, no.
Rocky Johnson, The Rock, Afa and Sika, Rikishi, Samoa Joe. The list goes on. The two guys now, the tag team champs. That family is deep.
Yeah, and Randy,
Yokozuna.
Yokozuna,
Yeah.
right, and of course, the main guy.
Oh yeah, yeah. The guy,
Why are we not coming
the
up?
world freaking champion for like
The
30
the
years.
biggest name in all of wrestling.
Roman
Anyway,
Reigns.
Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
And so Roman Reigns shows up as a 10-year-old on the show.
Oh, amazing.
And it's
Amazing.
really-
I think I have to check it out.
All of these people are on the show as these kids, and they have a part of like the fun thing about it.
Would you say it's on Paramount Plus or Hulu?
Paramount Plus.
Okay.
One of the fun things about the Forrest Gump of it all is that when we meet somebody who's about to become super famous, they like run a stat sheet up there. It's like who are these people going to be?
Oh, that's funny. I like that.
So it's clever. It's fun. I'd love to see a version that was 15% more, 15% less gloss.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest problem with it's a little too glossy, and I think it's partly because it's family and partly because it's done by the WWE, so that they could just dare to be a little funnier,
Their name doesn't show up anywhere on the marketing though. When I look, you don't see any WWE. I wonder. They must have. Yes, their IPs.
There's no
all
way.
Over it, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean their IPs all over it, and the way they treat Vince,
yeah,
is the proof that
maybe they just he's notoriously litigious, so maybe.
Oh no, and he's super uptight about all that kind of stuff. But it's really fun to see, like, Pat Patterson is a big part of the show, and so like, yeah, it's a little. Every time I think it's a little politically like both sidesy, it's not really.
All right.
We get some good trickle down economics jokes, which I enjoyed. So anyway, blah blah blah. Young Rock, it's enjoyable.
Keith, we should probably wrap it up and get. I think you and I are. They want us on the House floor. We got a couple votes in.
Oh, got a couple votes. Oh, I'm excited. Who am I going to vote for? Probably, The Rock wants me to vote for The Rock. So maybe The Rock for speaker. Yeah, there it is.
The way things are going. Anyway, folks, this is K&M Geekly. We talk about what the hell ever.
Whatever we want.
I hope you've enjoyed it. Check out The Glass Onion. Check out Young Rock. Hey, start a podcast. Get yourself some NDI feeds going. We will be here the rest of your week. Let's see, on Wednesday, you're going to see us, the new episode of Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine.
Deep Space Nine. We have a new toys dropping tomorrow.
New toys dropped.
New customs?
No, well, that is on Saturday. So that you've already seen that.
Oh,
you're going to see a new Dazbot this coming weekend.
That's right.
And you'll see a K&M Geekly again. We'll check us out on Patreon if you liked our Let's Play of our first hour of Keith and Mike play Star Trek The Next Generation and Final Unity. You can check that on our Patreon. We're going to continue it over there, probably with some consistency because I think it's like a 10-hour game, so we're going to have to get on that, Keith.
Yeah, well, it was fun.
Yeah.
We had fun doing it.
And if YouTube says so, maybe we'll pop some eventually on. Like maybe we'll give it a buffer and we'll pop them on the YouTube channel. We'll see. We'll see. Who knows?
Yeah.
But until then, listen. Whatever you enjoy, whatever you're watching, don't let anyone out there yuck your yum. Keep doing the things you find fun and keep on geeking on. Until next week, this is K&M Geekly.